Accent is No Accident podcast. I am your host, Maritza Perez. And we are here today with an incredible author, professor, speaker, the Respect Doctor, who is helping employees and companies reach their full potential through respect. His name is Dr. Paul Marciano. And I would like Dr. Paul to start by reading your bio to our audience so they can get a little more of insight about you. Dr. Paul Marciano is a leading authority on employee engagement and retention. He earned his Ph.D. in clinical psychology from Yale University, where he specialized in behavior modification and motivation. Paul has served on faculties of Davidson College and Princeton University, where he has taught courses in leadership, industrial organization psychology, survey development, research methods, and statistics. Paul has worked in the field of organizational development for over 25 years and is the president of the human relations consulting firm Whiteboard LLC, a company committed to helping organizations cultivate, manage, and grow their human capital. Paul is also a strategic advisor to Kudos Inc., an innovative SaaS employee engagement platform. Paul's internationally acclaimed book, my favorite, Carrots and Sticks Don't Work, Build a Culture of Employee Engagement with the Principles of Respect, published by McGraw-Hill in 2010, provides dozens of real-world case studies and turnkey strategies to increase employee discretionary effort and reduce turnover. The book details his acclaimed respect model that has been embraced by schools. And I forgot to mention his trademark: medical practices, pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing facilities, sales organizations, consulting firms, and government agencies. Paul is also the proud grandson, and this is a fun fact, of Ludwig Bellman's author and illustrator of the classic children's book, Madeline. Welcome, Paul, to my podcast. It is an honor to have you as a guest.
Maritza, thank you so much for inviting me. It is a pleasure to be on with you, and I believe so much the mission of this podcast. And again, I just appreciate the opportunity to contribute to it.
Thank you so much. It is really an honor, and I'm very happy to have you here. Let's do the very first thing that I like to ask to all our guests. Please, Paul, tell me, Dr. Paul, tell me, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
Yeah, well, so a lot of people, when they find out I'm from New Jersey, Jersey accent, so that's a good thing. Now, when you say accent, I mean, the way I interpret it is just my view, my perspective on the world, and I think that was developed as a child growing up on a farm, working really hard, having a dad who was first generation Italian American, and used to say, if you want to eat 7 days a week, you work 7 days a week. So I think that's where, in part my identity and my perspective on the world really came from.
And that is amazing. And one of the things that I didn't know about you was who your grandfather was. Mm-hmm. My daughter used to love to watch Madeline.
That's great.
And read the book and everything. It is.
I'll say is that Madeline has been, hopefully some of the folks that are listening are familiar with her and been around for, I guess, about 75 years. And one of the things that I've heard is the reason that she's had such longevity is she's probably the first girl in, that's been written about and being fearless and about being courageous. And that's who she really represents. And actually is a role model of my grandmother, who was named. His name is Madeline. So it's a wonderful legacy.
That is amazing. Yes. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Paul, let's get to it. What is that is so essential about creating a culture of respect in the workplace, and why it's so important?
Yeah. Well, for me, fundamentally, I believe that people should be treated with respect. I just do. And as a great benefit to organizations, when people are treated with respect, they engage more. So, when people are disrespected in some way, and it could be on a personal basis, and in some cases, unfortunately, related to things like religion or sexual preferences and such. When they're disrespected, they disengage from the people around them, and so creating a safe workplace environment where folks really honor one another, and can flourish in that environment, just it matters a lot, right? It makes a difference.
Yes, exactly. And I was a former employee, and it is true. I mean, you get a better relationship with your bosses and your leaders and coworkers as well when there is respect. The moment that that line is not longer there or is crossed,
Yeah,
you will immediately change and damage that relationship.
yeah,
So when we are creating relationships as a leader in the workplace, the engagement from our employees is a little more profound than only, like you saying, in carrots and sticks don't work. Creating ways to um, give and perks to our employees.
mhm,
I think that an employee in a smaller company, not that is not a big corporation, works more just because is recognizable. Their
yeah,
work is recognizable and
yeah.
so. How do you say a leader can get there?
Yeah, and for me, it's not about carrot and sticks, right? It's not about dangling potential gifts in front of somebody. And as you know from having read the book, there's a tremendous amount of research in this area, and yet individuals and organizations persist in the idea of, we're going to give an employee of the month kind of award or plaque. And it was a conversation I just had recently with a client of mine, helping them to understand that that actually leads to an overall decrease in morale. And so, as you know, the respect model is an acronym with the R standing for recognizing and acknowledging people. Again, not in the sense of, hey, here's a plaque, but in the very authentic way of just walking up and saying, Maritza, thank you so much for what you've done, be specific, yesterday, and the difference that it's made for our clients and for our team. So we know that when people are recognized and acknowledged for their contributions, that they give more themselves, right? They give more initiative, more effort. But when people fail to be recognized or acknowledged, they actually decrease the level of effort that they have.
Exactly. They don't feel like they are working. Their work is
Matters.
exactly. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
that they, and therefore they don't matter.
Excellent point. Yep. So everybody wants to, work for an organization that they feel is makes a difference. Most people do is winning in some way, and they want to know the role that they have to play within that organization.
Yeah. And then they feel also that they belong to the organization.
Absolutely.
How does one, not as a leader, not only creates or gives respect one-on-one, but also leads those around you to create a group and a team of
Yeah.
people that respect each other?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. As from a leadership perspective, I always think about Martin Luther King giving his, the talk for the mall in Washington. And you see that image, there's just, thousands and thousands of people. And so, to be a great leader and one that's respected, it's about articulating a compelling vision and then inspiring people in ways to fulfill on that vision. And I think you would be hard pressed to find a powerful leader who wasn't highly respected. And with respect comes a matter of influence. So, the more one's respected, the more influence they have over others. When they do something to be, a loss of respect, they lose their followers. And so I think that in terms of fostering a culture of respect within your team, it's really important to set those kinds of expectations. A lot of organizations will say, "Oh, respect's a core value," but where they fail is they don't talk about what that respect looks like on the playing field. And by the way, for the folks listening here, I have a list of, I think, 125 different specific behaviors that demonstrate respect in the workplace, starting with simple things like actually showing up to your meeting on time. I just, before you, had a meeting with an individual. He texted me at the last minute and said, "Hey, I'm going to be late." And I waited and waited and waited, and then these are very simple things, just, keeping your word and being on time. But then again, establishing within the group expectation of this is how we treat one another here, and holding people accountable to that. And I know, well, as you know, my most recent book, Let's Talk About It, is the importance of having those kinds of conversations with people and saying, this behavior doesn't work in our culture.
Yes. And I think that takes us, in your new book, Let's Talk About It, that takes us from the what I call the old human resources to the new human resources, where now we have the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the human resources. And many people have the perception they both go separate. But I believe that in that aspect, DEI creates that culture of it's okay to have confrontation. It's okay to have a conversation about things that we are not comfortable with. So what is the importance of the DEI?
Yeah. And by the way, I do have to work in one of my favorite quotes. I'm a quoteaholic. And that is, by John Maxwell, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so that's also creating this culture and expectation of, caring about one another as individuals. I think that the DEI, and coming from a white male, it can be, I don't know, humbling, maybe for some threatening. I'll say as white males, for better or worse, have never really had to think about anything like diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've walked around as kind of ignorant at times. So we're scared. And I completely know that there have been times where I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say or not say. And one of the common ones I think about is in some office environments, women are called girls, and that's okay in that environment. And in some environments, they're yelling and screaming goes on, and because that's okay as part of that culture. But it's not okay when it then ends up, in some way making people feel disrespected. I think the other challenge is, and this is a very realistic one, is when organizations feel absolutely compelled to hire people of, different ethnicities, right? And they are not as well qualified as other candidates. And this leads to a lot of problems in organizations. And you would know more about this than certainly I do on this topic.
Yes, and that is something very incredible. Sometimes people companies and corporations, in order to qualify as a diverse company and equal opportunity, they hire for color, they
Yeah.
hire for
Gender.
diversity without actually making the real evaluation about what the qualifications are. And I totally agree. And that's part of the DEI, where we are all in an equivalent opportunity, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that just because I'm Hispanic, I have more than somebody that is white, right? Talking the other day, I had somebody in my podcast, and we were talking. She's from South America as well, and we were talking about how something is funny for us. When you are in your country, everybody is equal, everybody is the same. But then you move to another country, like I move here. She is in another country. I move here to the U.S. and suddenly I'm different.
Mm.
The impact, the psychological impact on that, and you probably will know better at that, is like, what? Am I different?
Mm.
Is that why are you calling me different? What is going on? And then you start like thinking, what's happening? Why am I different? You don't understand. No, but you're different. Oh, but you probably don't do things like that. I'm still human.
Right.
You poke me with a needle, I still bleed.
Yeah.
So sometimes I believe that when we see or we are in front of somebody that is not like us,
Yeah.
immediately label different.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I want to share a story. I participated in a workshop. Some of you may be called Landmark Forum, and one of the exercises was that we had to stand up. There were 25 people before COVID, like almost nose to nose with somebody else in front of you, and you had to stare into their eyes for what's like 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, and seemed like an eternity, of course. And I was opposing a young Indian man, and probably 20 years old or something, and I'm 50 years old at the time. And I'm looking in at him, right into his eyes, and my first thought was, we have nothing in common. By the end of that 5 minutes, what I got was, we have everything in common. Like, I really got that as a human being.
Yes, and then there are many things that we have in common. There are many things that we like the same. So how can we break? And I believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion has come a little bit, but I still believe that we need to work in it, where we need to work into the respect part.
Yeah.
We need to understand that if you're going to have a workplace with different cultures, people from different places, different religions, it's not about, do not talk about your religion, do not talk about your activism groups that you go to after work. Do not talk. It's about, it's okay to be yourself.
Right.
As soon as you respect me and I respect you.
Yeah.
So, hi, I'm very happy to know you are here watching our podcast today. It is an honor to be featuring so many entrepreneurs on the journeys of their inside voice, their accent that is not an accident. And we want to reach out more people like you who are creating a better world of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging. So please take a moment to hit the subscribe button below, like, and share to others. And even if you want to leave a comment, that'll be nice. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode. So, what do we need to change a little bit the culture at the workplace?
Yeah.
Where everybody becomes a little more respectful and not accepting, but loving each other and having a good relationship with each other.
Yeah. And I've worked with a lot of organizations where there are those differences. I mean, one of the comments that comes to mind is, Israelis tend to be much more confrontational than Americans. Americans then will become insulted by that. Indians can be much more confrontational. So when I get people in a room like that to discuss culture, and that, it's never about the intent, it's always about the impact. So if I say something in a particular way, and you take offense to it, and then I become defensive, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. You still have to understand that there is an impact to that. And then to begin to, for me, I'm a behaviorist, you mentioned that. It's about how do we change people's behavior, and that does demonstrate respect. But it takes, I think, fundamentally a commitment that matters, and that comes from the leadership, right? So that matters in our organization. That's an expectation. And then toward that is this greater understanding of an appreciation of who one another is, regardless of not only the color of their skin or gender or age, but I mean, even, like in the United States, there are differences and prejudices from, and judgments made, right? Whether you're from the South or the Northeast or the West Coast. Unfortunately, that kind of prejudice, I think, and stereotyping exists everywhere.
Yes. And you said something very important right there, because you said that when somebody does something to another culture, and the other culture is probably more assertive, the important thing is recognize that those differences do not make one stronger and the other one weak, but to understand that, oh, I'm sorry I approached you this way.
Yeah.
And I should have not talked to you that way. It does not have to be immediate, but as soon as you recognize that what you did impacted somebody else, and it's not about, I was not right, I was not wrong, right. It's about, wait a minute, I impacted that person. And then sometimes the way we make others feel, it's going to be the last thing they remember us about.
Yes, for sure. Now, what's really important here that I will say is it's also up to the individual to let know, hey, that this is the way I felt based on that comment. Because I'm not somebody who goes around planning on insulting people. I always, as you know, intend to respect people. But there have been times in my life where I have said something that insulted somebody, and I had no idea that was the case. And so they end up building up some sense of resentment toward me. I have no idea why. So I think it is important that we, that stand up for ourselves. I'm not sure I'm crazy about that phrase, but the point is that we are willing to say to the other person, our relationship is important. It matters. And I want to share with you that when you said this, I ended up, it occurred for me like this. It had an impact on me. And provide the other person the opportunity then to apologize.
Yes, I love that, because sometimes the person doesn't even know, like you say, what just happened. And it probably continues happening because they are not even aware of what they're doing. There are also other cases of narcissistic, but that those, and I keep telling people, narcissistic and bullying, although it's big, there are less people than the people that are not.
Sure.
So if like you teach your kids, the first thing that you teach your kids is, if you see somebody bullying another, stand up and say, hey, stop. Because sometimes the person that is being bullied cannot react.
Right.
So stop, walk away, help the other person. That helps. So having a culture of recognizing and togetherness.
I apologize for interrupting you, but this week there was a situation with a gentleman that I coach, and his boss is a bully. There's, however you want to define Billy, yelling and screaming at him and demeaning him. And this guy just sits there and takes it because he's really afraid of retribution, right? If he says something to his boss. So I was in the environment where I talked to another gentleman who was also a manager, and he knew what was going on. And I said, Brian, this is not part of what this culture is supposed to be about. Like, it's not, you hear him yelling and screaming and demeaning this guy, and you're doing anything about it. And that's not right. That's not okay. And so, I said, if you're not able to have a conversation with the other manager who's a peer of his, then this is an issue that needs to be discussed with the president. And I'm hoping that that's what occurred, and that the president actually sat this other fella down and said, this doesn't work here. And it says a lot on the part of the president as a leader, like, we don't tolerate this kind of behavior. And when you hold somebody accountable like that, the level of respect for you goes up.
Yes, and it's the main point of being a leader. And I believe that how wolves, the alpha works behind them, and the reason why he walks behind them is not because he wants to be the last, but because he has a view of everybody in case something happens.
Yeah, I love that.
So that is the reason of leadership, that you have the view of everyone so that you can help them in any way.
Yeah.
You don't need to know absolutely everything what they do, and it doesn't mean you help get their work done, but you help them through and on not the not.
Yeah.
Another question is judging others.
Oh.
I believe it happens a lot, especially in this is a discussion I was having the other day, when you have it, like in our country, where you have people of all kinds of cultures. Yeah. The very first thing that happens is you start judging others.
Yes. I read my new book.
I have read the synopsis and I started listening to that.
That's okay. So because I ask you, because I talk a lot about judging others in that book. And so for people listening, it's, you might think, I don't judge others. And we judge people all the time. I use the example of, I pull up to a red light and the person next to me is, driving a certain car, and they're playing a music, music is like thumping away, and I look over and they're smoking a cigarette and they have tattoos, and they look a certain way, and so I immediately make judgments about that. Go into my local 7-Eleven or Wawa and I see people in there, and, based on, again, what they look like, or, what they're buying in front of me, right? A pack of cigarettes and Yahoo or whatever it is. And unfortunately, as a human being, I think we're wired to do that because it's a we versus them kind of thing, or it's a distinguishing ourselves. And unfortunately, oftentimes, right, we're judging people in a very critical manner. Sometimes we judge them in a positive manner, but most often in a critical manner. And sadly, I think it's about making us feel better about ourselves.
Yes, it makes us. I believe that it takes that little part of you that you feel you are not, and you portray it into others.
Yeah.
And one of the funny questions that people ask all the time is like, who are more judgmental, a man or a woman? And in my opinion, I think it comes with age. The older you get, the more judgmental that you get.
I think that's probably right. But and I also will say maybe that, I say there very few good things about getting older, quite frankly. You know, you get a lot more bruises and banged up. And I do think that, or I hope that we learn to accept ourselves more and accept others.
Yes.
You know, but it takes a conscious effort. I mean it. And I'm not kind of trying to come across as a saint at all, because I judge people all the time, you know, when I think bad thoughts.
I know that we all have said, "Oh, what an idiot."
Yeah.
We all have said that to anybody. I mean, we had a previous president. We all went, "Oh my God." Right?
Right. Or somebody, you know, somebody cuts you off in the car and immediately you know all kinds of things about them. The truth is that there have been times where you cut somebody off in the car.
And you are done.
You did that. So, but I think it starts with I do think, for me anyway, it starts with a commitment to a core value of who I am, right? Who I am as a human being is to respect others. Mm-hmm. And part of that means that I'm not judging others in a negative, critical, kind of put them down manner. And again, I fail at that all the time. But you got to have the commitment and then a sense of service for that. Catch yourself. Catch yourself
on doing it and go, "Oh, I'm sorry." And even though you're not saying it to the person probably, but you're saying it to yourself.
And you never know people's stories. You never know what they're dealing with or dealt with.
Exactly. That's the number one, my number one rule is to treat everybody nice, because you have no idea what is happening in their life.
No.
For instance, in my culture, you don't yell at others.
Mm.
You know, you yell at somebody, and that is extremely respectful. And we say something funny. It's like, wait a minute. The only one who yells at me is my mama.
Yeah.
So it is extremely disrespectful. But yet, if you do not let somebody know, even in a joke like that, wait, don't yell at me. The only one who yells at me is my mama. Or you say, "No, don't yell at me. I really don't appreciate that tone. Calm down and come back and talk to me."
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Somebody said to me the other day, which I thought was interesting. They said, just look at the person and go, "Are you feeling okay?" And it totally them off guard. And you can say, "Well, I mean, that's because you sound really, really upset. You don't sound yourself." And probably better if we continue the conversation later.
Exactly. That is a way for you to respect yourself.
Exactly.
Because respect starts within yourself.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
And it is very important that sometimes we don't know the state of mind of others, but if we know that we are not in the right place, we need to want this. And I take the opportunity in my podcast to say, if you don't feel like you are yourself and you have feelings of extreme sadness or rage or anger, look for help.
Mm.
It does not mean you're crazy. Nobody's going to think less of you, but you are going to do yourself a big favor and understand what really is going inside of you.
Yeah.
So what motivates employees other than recognition and engagement?
Yeah. So I think for me, and I mentioned earlier, respect is an acronym. This is mostly having to do with one's individual supervisor, manager, because that's where there can be the greatest impact. So the first E stands for empowering people. So actually giving them the tools, the training they need to be successful. I was talking 2 days ago with a gentleman who's a first-time manager, and he literally just got thrown into the position, and he feels so, incompetent and lacking any kind of support. So when we respect people, we really do give them the they need to be successful. And that includes the S is the supportive feedback aspect of it. So, and that can include some critical feedback, but you come from the place of, hey, I care about you. I care about your success. I care about the success of our team. And that's why I'm giving you this coaching. And if you're not skilled, not comfortable with providing that kind of feedback as a manager, you are in the wrong job because it's critical. The P is for partnering, so building collaborative working relationships and breaking down some of that hierarchy that exists in traditional organizations. To know that I feel like a partner, we're collaborating. The second E is for setting clear expectations and then holding people accountable. So the number one reason that people aren't successful in their jobs, don't meet expectations, because they're not clear about what those are in the first place. Again, if you don't hold people accountable, others on the team will lose respect for you. The C is for consideration. So demonstrating fundamental consideration toward other. As I said earlier, the John Maxwell quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the T is for trust, fostering a basic level of trust. And that comes with time. That only comes with time. And I always think about a kind of a piggy bank, right? And so I'm going to put a nickel in, you're going to put a dime in, I'll put a penny in. We build that level of trust, like a bank up. And then if something were to happen, for example, I were to find out that you were speaking negatively, you were gossiping about me, it's like dropping that piggy bank and just smashing on the floor. And you can never put the piggy bank really back together. It's so difficult to then restore trust in the relationship. And quite frankly, it's often better if one person moves on. And that applies to your personal life as your professional.
Exactly. And like I say, respect starts with you, but it also, because it's you, it starts at home.
Yeah.
So teach your children,
for sure,
and your family to be respectful. And diversity, equity, inclusion starts at home. So we're almost getting to the end, and I would like to give you an opportunity, because you have news, you have something coming up. You're opening a podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for mentioning that. I am. It's something I've said I wanted to do for years, and now I'm inspired and to do it. And for me, it's going to be titled "Let's Talk About It," right, based on my last book title, and it's going to be really about dedicating helping organizations, providing a positive workplace culture where both people and the business can thrive. So that's what it's about. If anybody's listening and would like to be a guest, be happy to have you. So I have a message, right? I have a message about respect in the workplace and my belief in building that positive workplace culture. And I think it does often have to do with having those straight, if you want to call them courageous conversations with people, and including things like, hey, I apologize. I did not mean to insult you in that way or disrespect you in that way. So I just feel like so much of the dysfunction in the world is, our inability or a lack of willingness to have those conversations really contributes to that dysfunction. So yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. And I look forward to this journey and learning from folks such as yourself. We're already doing this really well.
You're going to love it. It will, once you start, you won't stop. So tell me, how can people get in contact with you, and where can they find you?
Sure. The easiest thing is to email me, paul@paulmarciano.com, or just look at my website, www.paulmarciano.com.
Excellent. It has been a pleasure having you as my guest. I would like to continue this conversation. Yes. And probably anytime we can do another episode. And anything else you would like to tell the audience? Any last thought?
I will. I'll end with another quote by Gandhi, which is, he said, to be the change that you want to see in the world. And so, either respect, you want to be in the world. Look in the mirror, right? You're the role model. And if somebody is disrespectful towards you, I mean, that's about them. The old two wrongs don't make a right. I think, continue to demonstrate respect. Doesn't mean you're not going to break the relationship off. That's not what that means, right? In some cases, that actually is what's appropriate. But don't let how other people treat you influence how you treat them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And I wish you the best. And I hope to have you back. And I think I will have you back. And to everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. Remember, you came to this world because a great thing with the universe or God brought you because you are loved. To be loved and to love each other. Till next time. Bye.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.